Well, hello everybody. This is the State of the Chain meeting for September 28th, 2018. And as you know, we're constantly iterating this format. And right now I'm directly taping to a camera in my office instead of going to YouTube because we're editing anyway, so might as well just edit it out after it's done. These meetings are generally becoming outbound meetings, so this is how we talk to the public. And we're developing the technique, so we may not have a lot of viewers now, but we're developing a technique largely for the future and also for people's, in our own community, an opportunity for everybody to understand what we're doing, why we're doing it. And that includes a little bit of status from the week's activities, as well as maybe going back into some of the historic documents that led us here and kind of reviewing, why we're doing certain things or why we've taken certain positions. And that's to bring people up to speed and to help them understand what the game that they're working on. So the meeting of this, the format of this meeting is down to half an hour, and I'm going to talk about a few core issues, and then we'll just go through status. And in the end, we can have question and answer on the Discord, and that'll be recorded by Craig. And we'll just shut off the video, or we'll keep the video running. But we like to keep it around half an hour for general consumption. So the first thing I want to just go back to is, to the NSPE paper that we wrote. That was a really important paper. Back then, if you read it, you would say, "Oh, what's this mumble jumble stuff? This doesn't make any sense. These are new words." But now, when you read it, it makes everybody knows what these things are now. So it was written in 2015, which is a good 3 years ago. So now most people have, some background in blockchain, what it is. They don't have to start at square one anymore. So I would encourage going back and reading that document because, it's a little dated, but it's got some real gems in it and some pretty clear thought. And of course, I was when I was doing this, that was the third attempt to actually write it. So it had several iterations prior to that, and we had some good advisors. So I blame the clarity of thought to others. But one of the primary insights of that document was comparing the PE protocol to the blockchain. What does the blockchain do, and why is it attractive? Why does everybody like it? And how does the PE protocol work? And this is the Engineering Blockchain Consortium, so we are talking about engineering, and we're talking specifically about professional engineering in the United States or in Europe or in Canada, or because they have this direct legislative link to finance and insurance. So, in the United States, in order to get a certificate of occupancy for a building, you have to have a licensed professional engineer have reviewed or inspected that building. A lot of lawsuits require expert witness to be a PE. So we're already part of that community. So it makes sense to start there. Obviously, the intention is that all people are makers of useful things. And hopefully we can generalize outbound like that. So I don't mean to be standoffish when I say, well, no, you're not a PE. Therefore, it's not PE exceptionalism here. It's just PE has a certain superpower right now that we're going to try to transfer that to others later. So your patience in that regard is highly appreciated. But again, not such a small percentage of engineers are PEs that it's really unrealistic for us, to really enforce that across an economy. There's so many different engineering professions, so many different categories and types and levels, and they're all doing useful work. So the useful work is what we're interested in, not necessarily the classification. That will work itself out on a blockchain in a new way, maybe. So if you look at a blockchain, the protocol, it's a programmed rules and a computer algorithm. So the objectivity is formed by this programmed rules and this computer algorithm. So code is law, and that's where it's at. But if you look at the PE protocol, well, we have engineering laws and principles, and our argument would be nature is law. So you can't defy gravity, you can't defy the effects of force and power. Therefore, that's the body of law that engineers go by. So it's still it's an idea that law is programmable, and so PE clicks it there with blockchain on that concept. Governance: the blockchain offers this third party to administer a database, and that's attractive because it takes the broker out of the space, and everybody can talk about how wonderful that's going to be when we get rid of all the brokers and all these people who control data and so forth. But in the PE protocol today, the engineer serves as a trusted institutional adjudicator to inspect buildings, to look at structures, and to perform planning and essential things that are absolutely essential to infrastructure, to our society, to our civilization. So engineers on box 2, they perform a similar task as a blockchain. Now, part 3, permanence. So the blockchain is permanent because these transactions are executed by programmed set of rules and are indelible. Well, we could say the same for engineering, of course, because concrete, you can't unpour concrete. It's pretty indelible engineering. Once it's like you can't uncrack an egg, I guess is the expression you would use. But once engineering is performed, it's not undone or not undoable. So it's indelible by observation. You obviously can see that bridge is not going to go back into its original form of rocks or whatever it was created from, or smelted from the iron. So it's got permanence embedded in itself as well. Consensus. So computers vote on the vote that reaches a consensus. Minding a puzzle is difficult to solve, but easy to prove. Well, the PE stamp also secures the node by peer review. So the PE has been selected as the node. They stamp their stamp is consensus of others. It's consensus of the law. It's consensus of the profession and the institutions. So it provides a very similar function. Chronology. A string of indelible blocks establishes chronological order of contracts in time. So this is what a blockchain is good and important for. Well, professional engineering stamp also permits the establishing of chronological order in the physical asset, and also by inspection you can tell when something has gone correctly. I mean, the engine goes into the bay before the hood gets put on. I mean, it's pretty obvious that things go together in a certain order. When you look at work instructions from an engineer, they're all put in a certain order. When you look at the construction process or any project delivery method, you see order, and you see one part goes in front of the other, obviously to create something. So this idea of chronology is embedded in engineering as well. Security is provided with a cryptography that's very difficult to guess, very easy to prove. So you have security in a blockchain that's provided by cryptography. Security is provided in engineering by licensure, which is very difficult to obtain. It's very difficult to fake, but very easy to prove. Now, here's a problem with the engineering profession that we're going to try to solve, and that problem is that it's a single point of failure. So what happens is you have a hierarchy, and you would think, okay, so this point has to be secure because some big important event happens at that point. So what you do is you make the point more durable. So you make the individual holding that rung of the ladder, they have to have more education, they have to have more examination, they have to have more qualifications. So you secure that node even more, but it's still a single point of failure. Another way of accomplishing that same level of security is if you have 3 nodes and each one of them vote on each other. Most problems in engineering happen because somebody forgot to divide by pi. They don't happen because of some nuanced condition of nature. They happen because somebody forgot to perform a certain calculation, or forgot to do something that was pretty minor, or it was an oversight. So if you take 2 individuals and you check each other's work, the probability of that happening to a third individual, of that not being corrected, is diminished. If you actually show another person, that probability is diminished even more. So the network effect ultimately can achieve the same thing as hyper qualifying that node. So this is something that we can accomplish a different way, but we're still doing the same thing and providing security to that physical observation. Transparency. A blockchain can be audited to track cheaters or validate transactions. Well, engineering is a natural auditability itself. You look at the bridge and you know who did it. You know where it was done. There's usually a track record, and this is actually a part of the engineering profession that does tend to break down because the information that goes into constructing something or building something often gets lost, and I'm not sure if that's coincidence or not. When I'm working on a project and I'm working on an older building, I go to look for plans. I can't find them, and there's a lot of things that seem to be happening there. It's almost like the amount of information is minimized. The amount of information is to minimize the amount of liabilities that other people hold for the future work, and that's unfortunate to have to minimize information in order to have a successful project. You would think you'd maximize the information so that people know how to avoid difficulty in the future. So this is something where blockchain would help the profession immeasurably in making that information available and valid and auditable and permanent. And so you can see that they're very complementary, and each bullet point of a blockchain matches directly to a function of engineering. So it's a natural fit. It's kind of odd. You go out into the world and you hear people using terms like chains and forks and blocks, and these are all engineering terms. But engineering is the least likely to adopt this technology, even though it's modeled after engineering itself. So that is a pretty stunning omission, and it's something that we like to take a look at. And then there's a question: is when is blockchain useful? So I've been going to a lot of conferences and people are saying, in the old days they used to try to prove to you how smart they were by telling you how a blockchain works. Now they try to prove to you how smart they are by asking, do you need a blockchain? You don't need a blockchain for that. So, what are you doing showing up at a conference if you're going to tell everybody not to use the blockchain? Well, there's some misunderstanding in that. A blockchain is very good when you have a shared database. That's something that everybody needs to share. When you have multiple writers, those are many people at the same time simultaneously writing to the blockchain. The absence of trust doesn't mean that everybody hates each other or doesn't trust each other. It means that trust is not necessary in order to execute a transaction. So in society, small communities, they trust each other, they know each other, and the blockchain says, well, we don't need to have that anti-scaling burden. We can do it a different way. Then there's the disintermediation of so blockchain is a technology for databases with multiple non-trusting writers to be modified directly, and there's a disintermediation. That's when you can determine who does what. Blockchains are very good for discerning. So if I put this piece there and Joseph follows with this piece and Marianne follows with the piece afterwards, then that's all recorded. So you can disintermediate tasks. And this is super important because on something as complex as an airplane or something, one of the problems is who was the last person to touch it? Who was the last person? And when you go resurrect a forensic investigation or something, you have to go through this exercise of finding who was the last person to touch it. But the blockchain provides this important tool to engineers. Then there's transaction interactions. That means that's another way of saying critical path. So the blockchain helps to discern critical path in the decisions in the applications. So I just want to also to a blockchains are good to a set of rules. So if you have a certain decision, a set of rules would be like a smart contract, and you need to apply a certain set of rules to a condition. You can program them into the chain, and that's very convenient for engineering as well, because we can program a set of rules such as is that decision validated? How many times is it validated by? And how much we can start assigning probabilities to the passage of a certain rule on the blockchain. So the point I'm trying to make here is that blockchain is very, very similar to the way engineers already do things, and it's also a superpower. It's a thing that really amplifies our ability to perform our task and to get it done quickly and to scale. So it's super important for engineers. And so I just wanted to cover that because in the future we're going to have to take this for granted and continue on to other topics. So I just want to bring that idea forward, and we're about 15 minutes into this, which is right on target. I hope that was useful. If anybody has any questions, let me know. I can refer you to the white paper with the National Society of Professional Engineers, and I encourage folks to go back and read some of these legacy documents, which are part of our formation. So now I'm going to go back and take a look at what's on our on some of the status that we did this week. This week was really interesting. we've had several. Okay, we actually did several. I did 2 presentations over the last 2 weeks, and these presentations are talking about the big picture, and so I mean super big picture. I mean the biggest part of this, and starting at the big picture, we can kind of move backwards into our day-to-day activities. But there's that sort of that North Star that we're trying to get out there, and it's kind of a populist statement. It's also, you know, should be motivational to the people in the group, but it's we started, the first time I gave this talk was at the MIT Harvard meeting, and that went over very well. I mean, the questions spilled into the hallways essentially, and then we gave it again at a conference in Seattle, and then last week at another conference in Seattle, and both of those are on videotape. The last one was down to half an hour, and that's on videotape, and that's probably as good as it gets. We're gonna try to make it better, but it's really getting to some very high level points about what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I'm glad that that's out there, and so we've taken on several. So the sales side is we're preparing for more presentations. Thomas is going to be in Denver speaking at the Government Blockchain Association, or he spoke last Thursday. He's establishing a blockchain community of practice at Jacobs Engineering, and communities of practice are it's very interesting. It comes out of the knowledge management profession, and there's a whole lot of academic papers, a lot of knowledge about the knowledge management profession. So it's it's not something that nobody understands. It's something that a lot of people do understand. It's well established in the literature what a community of practice is. There's a lot of protocols for that. So Jacobs didn't, come forward with the initial investment, and there's a lot of reasons that we weren't going to discuss. But the community of practice is actually where we need to be. We need to be at the P2P level, talking engineers to engineers. So this is kind of what the sandbox is teaching us. That's the avenue forward for us. So Thomas is also working on the pitch deck. So this pitch deck is the thing we're going to go forward with to raise the money, the $2 million, the 1055, and that's going to be complementary to the 1055 document, which I'm working on with Daryl right now. So we're very close to that. We're going to be rolling that out again, and we're going to be so we have somebody who's well versed in finance, somebody who's well versed in the insurance industry, and somebody who's well versed in a group of people in the engineering industry. So we're building that capacity to move outbound once the 1055 is released. The governance. So co-creator's working on that. He's pulling together the 1055, the pitch deck, and everything is consistent with the 6 tenets of Curiosime. So he's sort of the gatekeeper on those, which are super important. And we've run into them, and then we've seen things that we said, well, we don't have to. That doesn't violate the 6 tenets, so we can do whatever we want. So it's actually been a pretty good guiding force to show us where to put the emphasis and where we can be completely new solution. We can take on a new solution. He's writing a constitution. I've read a lot of this work. The corporate structure has been put in the Show Me the Money document. The roadmap is being put together with Marcus, and it's going to be a very comprehensive roadmap, almost a schedule. But then we're going to simplify it for the different applications. So the white paper is going to have a roadmap for the organization, for the TGE, and then other documents that we put forward are each going to have roadmaps pertaining to the domain that they're discussing. Things that we need are terms of service, a code of conduct, and then workflow to approve and share documentation and updates. So it's a good practice, like a wiki. So these are things that are on the table and things that we ought to that we're considering. Now let me see. I see the technology side is really interesting. We're testing a chain. It's active. It's running. I've been on it several times, and we're understanding the different priorities that we have to do with the limited amount of budget and resources that we have. So I think we've spoken about this in the past, but it's also interesting to see people getting on it and starting to poke at it. What I'm doing is I'm just taking some old documents that I've produced, technical papers, and then dropping them onto the blockchain and kind of see what happens. And we're having trouble with getting photos on photos and heavy graphics into the blockchain, but at some point you have to say, we don't want to be an extension of somebody's hard drive. So do we really need the heavy graphics? And can the owner hold those graphics themselves, and we just store a hash of that graphic on the blockchain? So that tells us that that would be a feature that we'd consider, and then that gives the owner the ability to control the actual access to the document or the photograph or the graph or the sketch, and that gives the owner, what we're trying to give them is control over their information. So there's a lot of reasons to work at that juncture between how much goes on the blockchain, how much stays in the hands of the owner. So these are all. This is the sandbox telling us what it can do and teaching us what some of the features are that can be used and how they're being used. So I was able to successfully get a link. So if you look at my blockchain entry and then you click on the link, it shows the picture, and that's good enough. I mean that does the job. It's a little bit laborious now, so now I got to figure out what's the right size unit of a paper to put in. Should I put in a 20-page paper? What's the return on that effort? Or do I put it in smaller pieces? So now we're starting to talk about some of the economics of running the blockchain and running the interfacing with it. So we need more people on board to do that with us. And we need some instructional capacity, somebody to guide people through the process of dealing with this blockchain. Then we need use cases. We need projects that are out there that want to attempt to try doing this. Then we need people to upvote them and see where that goes. So this is, again, heavy sandbox material, heavy sandbox work, and it's a great opportunity to learn our system and figure out how it works. And that's an opportunity that's available. Let's see, we have Daryl is so we got the two websites. Everybody's familiar with the websites. We're rebuilding the white paper. So there's a lot of work to do. Another thing we're working on, another initiative is getting so we have the North Star. This is the thing everybody can look at and say, okay, the economy is kind of going down, and we've got the solution which goes up at the equal rate, which means we can hedge this old economy with this new economy, and wow, that's going to make everything better. But then we have to get into start talking about use cases, and if you go into agriculture, that's kind of limited to one particular element. And we've had people tell us it's great for agriculture. Or if we go into energy or oil and gas, then you could be branded as an oil and gas solution, and that's not bad, but it's not what we are. We're looking for something bigger, slightly bigger, and we're working on the idea of water. So water is necessary by everybody. It is itself distributed, and it appears in many forms. It appears in rotten pipes. It appears in corroded buildings. It appears in you can't live without water. It appears in agriculture. It appears in many different parts of the world. It's a very, very important component, and engineering has this widely and broadly distributed role in the access of water, the pumping of water, the movement of water, transportation of water, the purity of water. So this is something that the sandbox is telling us, and we've got some willing members in the area of water who are willing to start putting information on our blockchain. So Ari is working on some of the I would say the softer issues like the appealing to non-engineers, appealing to the bankers or to the emotion out there to do what an engineer isn't. Engineers were pretty square. And having somebody like Ari who founded Singular DTV, which is a platform similar to ours except for artists. And artists, they're on the other side of the spectrum as engineers in terms of maybe not, but I think that they think very similarly, because I'm a little bit of both. But also, artists give engineers a medium, and that's why I'm a proponent of arts in engineering, because an engineer is very creative, but they need some sort of medium of expression. And for me, being a musician, that has been my medium of expression. Otherwise, engineers can kind of get stuck or get lost in a corner. Whereas artists, sometimes they don't they don't get into the nuts and bolts of things the way engineers do. So I've always thought it was a perfect match for the two, and Ari's proving that to us by contributing things that we don't know about ourselves. So we're looking, we're very excited to have these components come in. RE becoming more active, having water as sort of a mantra, having that North Star in formation, and then we have the team working the nuts and bolts. We have a blockchain which is running and producing blocks. So, all these things are happening right now, and it's super exciting. We're looking for more people to get involved. The team is working very well. I don't have to tell people what to do. They just know what to do next. And if they don't, then another team member can nudge them. And this is what a network is. This is how a network operates. So in many ways, we're doing extraordinary things. So I want to thank everybody for their work, and I also want to encourage other people to join the Integrated Engineering Blockchain Consortium and help us build this technology out. Again, we're for everybody. We're going to be working with everybody. We want everybody to have a economically viable part of the economy that we're trying to help produce. And we're not the only chain in town. We don't expect to be the only token in town. Token interoperability is another part of our strategy, which we're working on. So it's about solving that bigger picture. It's about getting to that North Star, getting that bigger problem of our politics and our economics solved. Because I got a great quote this week that planet Earth doesn't need a world government. It needs a chief engineer. And you look at Star Trek, and I remember Captain Kirk saying, Scotty, what's up? And he'll tell you how much of your shields you have left, and what you can do with the resources you have, and then the politicians can go off and solve and do what they do best. So that's kind of the big picture. That's our State of the Chain for September 28th, 2018 at precisely 30 minutes. So thank you very much for your participation, and we'll be opening up the after party on Discord. All right, thank you.